Okay, so today we're doing something a bit different. We're talking about some of the worst businesses that you could start, especially as a beginner. I'm going to give you a list of reasons why these businesses are ones that you probably want to avoid, some of the risks associated with them, and let's just get into this video right now. Now, keep in mind that, look, this is obviously somewhat opinionated. It's not that you can't absolutely succeed in any one of these businesses, but these are personally ones that I would not start as my first business, and probably I would never start any one of these businesses that I'm about to mention here in this video. So let's get started here. The first one is a clothing company. Now, I know a lot of people want to start clothing companies, but I'm going to tell you right now that unless you are already rich and you got a trust fund that's kicking in next month, or maybe you went to school for fashion design and you're actually a really incredible designer, unless you fit into one of those two categories, you probably want to avoid starting a clothing company. And here's why. Because first of all, the margins are very, very tough on clothing. It's difficult to get people to care about your clothing company, especially if you're trying to launch like a Supreme type of brand or like a graphic t-shirt brand. It's really difficult to get people to actually care about your clothing company. See, and this is something that I learned early on when like we went through a little stint where we thought maybe we would start a clothing company, and we realized that like it's so difficult to get someone to buy your clothes and feel a certain way where they actually pull out their credit card and buy. So this is why like clothing companies work great for influencers, because if a fan is watching an influencer, they feel a certain way, so they buy that clothing. But if you are not an influencer, or you're not doing this as like a hobby type of business, then it's really difficult to break through on something like this. Now, sure, I do have friends who make a full-time living selling apparel, but it's really, really tough to break through in that industry, and it's not one that I would personally go for, especially as my first business venture. So the next business that I would definitely not start this year would be any type of franchise from a larger corporation. So franchises, you don't see them around as much anymore as what you did maybe in the 80s or 90s, and there's kind of a reason for this. But take, for example, like Subway or McDonald's. A lot of McDonald's used to be franchises. And the big issue that I have with starting a business like this is that maybe you think that you're going to launch a Subway in your local town, but the reality is that, even though you might own the business, the corporation still kind of owns you, and you end up kind of feeling like you're just a manager at that location. I have a friend who owned a Subway store. He ended up selling it because, it was annoying. Corporate was telling him to do all these things, bossing him around, and he eventually just got fed up with it and said, I can't handle this anymore. I just feel like a manager and I'm not getting treated well. And he felt like he didn't even own any part of the business as a franchisee. So I would be very careful with franchises. Even if, the brand name is super strong, it can be really tough, especially when the corporation, if you understand how franchises work, if the corporation is skimming money off the top, like revenue off the top, which are probably doing is like a royalty fee, it can be really tough to actually turn a profit as a franchisee. And then the biggest reason why I wouldn't start a franchise this year is because it's really difficult to scale. Your hands are kind of tied. You can't just go open 5 other locations in your local town. You have to kind of pass everything through corporate all the time. And I think it would just get very annoying. And it's not the business that I would personally be starting. Okay, the next one that I would avoid this year is any types of fads or trend products. And here's the reason why I would avoid these, because they come out very, very quickly. So think about something like fidget spinners or hoverboards. We actually tried to sell hoverboards for a brief period back in 2015 when they were really, really hot as Christmas gifts. And the mistake that we made on this was because we were going for trend products, fad products, where they get really hot, everybody wants one, and then they die out very quickly because supply hits the market. If you understand supply and demand, basically all the manufacturers flood in, and then the price of those things like hoverboards or fidget spinners go from $20 for a fidget spinner down to $2 for a fidget spinner that you can buy now. So what ends up happening, if you chase those fad products and you try to get a bunch of inventory for it, you end up paying a lot for them because the price is high and you think you can make a good profit. Then as everyone else floods into the market, suddenly the price drops and now you are sitting there with a bunch of inventory in your garage, and it's a bit annoying, and it's not something that I personally would do. So be careful if you're trying to do the e-commerce route, which you can definitely do. You can make a lot of money with e-commerce. Just be careful that you're not chasing fad or trend products that come in and go out very, very quickly, because you'll kind of lose your shirt on those. It's very, very possible, okay? So we are going to get into the other businesses in this video, but I want to briefly thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Cash App. So Cash App is the easiest way to send, spend, save, and invest in Bitcoin. If you've been following me for a while, then you know I've been investing into Bitcoin for many, many years, over 6 years now. And there's no easier way to do this than on Cash App. So Cash App makes this process seamless of buying Bitcoin, of selling Bitcoin, transacting, sending it to people. I think one of my favorite features on this is that it allows you to automatically invest a portion of your paycheck into Bitcoin. So, and I don't have to really think too much, and I can just kind of let it automatically do it for me. Now, one of my favorite features that I've been using more often is the peer-to-peer payments. So let's say, for example, that I want to send some Bitcoin to my brother because, maybe he bought me lunch last week and I just want to give him some Bitcoin for it. This is free to send Bitcoin to other people who are using Cash App. And so I can just add a little memo there and I can send it over very easily. I've been using this quite a bit now. So if you want to check out Cash App, I'll leave a link to them down below in the description where you can get started investing into Bitcoin with as little as $1. So thanks Cash App for sponsoring a portion of this video. They are one of the largest finance companies in the world. Tens of millions of people use them, and I personally use it as the method for buying Bitcoin myself. So thanks for sponsoring this portion, and let's continue on with the video. Okay, the next business that I would be very wary of starting is any type of restaurant. Now, restaurants are one of the most popular businesses to start. I understand that. But let me explain why I personally am very wary of them, and it's not something that I would want to do. The biggest reason is because if you just look at overall profit margins of the average restaurant, of the average food business, it's much lower than other industries. And it's because, there's a lot of supply. There's a lot of restaurants in every town, in every city, in every location in the world. And so because it's a very saturated market, it's extremely competitive. Restaurants fail all the time. And, I think the only way that I would start a food business or a restaurant business is if I had a passion for food. So if you're someone who's very passionate about food, then you should go and do it. My uncle started a food business and it did well. It's doing well, and he's had it for many, many decades, and he's made a living from it. So it can work. It's just something that, I think I don't have a passion for food, plus the overall average profit margins are tough on it. I think it's one of those industries that if you break through, you really break through and you do well. And if you don't, it just sputters out. It's hard to get those customers initially. The margins are low. It's very saturated. And then also you have to deal with things like lockdowns from pandemics and other issues that kind of associate with having a physical store, a business that people go into. And there's just a lot of risk associated with it. So it's not my optimal one to choose as a business. So let's talk about the other ones here. Another one is any type of ATM, any type of vending machine business. Look, I know people like vending machine businesses, but here's why I would not personally start or buy one. And the biggest reason is because you have to think about not just, how much revenue you're making per ATM or how much revenue you're making per vending machine, but you have to ask yourself this one big question. And it's that if I hired someone to do this ATM route, or if I hired someone to go out and check all these vending machines and restock it, if I paid them an hourly, $20 an hour, would I still make money after accounting for them driving around throughout the city, picking up the cash from the ATMs, replacing it, doing all these other things, right? Once you run those numbers, you realize that the profit margins are really, really tough, okay? And so when you factor in time, you're basically, if you are buying vending machines or ATMs and you're doing this route yourself and you're spending, 5 hours a week driving around your city, replenishing all these things, if you run the numbers, you might realize that the margins are not that great and you basically bought yourself a job. And for some people, that's what they want. You just want to kind of not have to work for someone and you can have your own job. That's great. But if you're trying to build a multi-million-dollar business, it's going to be really tough to do it through something like a vending machine or an ATM route where, the average transaction you're making $1 or $2 profit per transaction. It's pretty tough to really scale that to a very large business. And the next business that I would not start is any business that requires a loan. I don't know why, but if you ever take a finance or business class in high school or in college, the first thing they tell you is going to the bank and getting a loan for your business. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people can make. I don't know why they ingrain it into our brains so much that you need a loan to start a business. Please just try to avoid these as much as possible, because if there's there's probably data on this somewhere that I should look into. But I think that people who take out loans for a business, to start a business, like a local bakery in their town or something, in a lot of cases, I think those ones end up failing much more than ones that are basically just bootstrapped. So like if you wanted to start a food business in your town, why not start small, start almost even out of your house or a very small location, and then eventually bootstrap your way up as you kind of gain notoriety and you start getting more customers, you can expand on that. And then maybe, once the business model's proven, you can start to get some loans to maybe make more locations. But initially, like right off the bat, I'd be very careful starting a business where you have to take out a loan, and especially when you have to sign off for it and pledge personally guaranteeing that loan. I've seen people lose their houses. I've seen people lose their cars, had all these other things because they guaranteed on a loan for a business that they started because they went to the bank and they just, gave them kind of like a predatory loan. So be very careful with that. I don't think you need to have a loan for a lot of businesses that you start. Bootstrapping is definitely my preferred route for scaling a business. All right, and then the last one that I would not start, I kind of thought this would be like very common knowledge, but a lot of people still fall into this trap, is any type of business that kind of looks like a pyramid, right? And so, I'm not just talking about pyramid schemes, but I'm talking about MLMs, multi-level marketing. There's a lot of them out there, especially in like the insurance industry or the pest control industry, where basically you have to recruit more people, and then those people have to pay like fees to join the business so that they can make money, and it kind of just goes all the way down. And basically, when you start making money on other people who are making money on other people, that's when you want to kind of like throw up the red flag and be like, wait a minute, something's not right here. So make sure you double check that. And honestly, if you are in a business and you're trying to build a business and some of your friends or people around you tell you like, hey, this is a pyramid scheme or this is multi-level marketing, if you have to explain to them that it's not, it probably is. So yeah, just avoid those because not many people make money in them. It's literally a pyramid. Okay, so those are the businesses that I would avoid this year. Let me know other ones that you would probably avoid as well. The overall message I want to share with you here is that make sure you're not buying yourself a job. Always think about, could I hire someone to do this business, to run this business and still make money, so that you're not buying yourself a job. Remember that important message there. So thanks for watching the video. Thanks Cash App for sponsoring a portion of this video, and I'll see everybody sometime in the future.